On a sweltering August morning in 1498, the air on the eastern bank of the Azama River was thick enough to choke a man. Bartholomew Columbus, brother to the more famous Christopher, stood shin-deep in mud, surveying a landscape of dense mangroves and hostile terrain. He was not looking for gold in that specific moment, but rather a defensive position that could anchor an empire for centuries to come. The humidity pressed against his armor like a physical weight. He wiped sweat from his brow. This was the moment the Americas changed forever. It was here, amidst the buzzing of tropical insects and the smell of brackish water, that the European footprint in the Western Hemisphere was truly stamped into the earth. Bartholomew ordered the ground broken. He did not know that nature would soon violently reject his initial choice. The settlement he founded, originally named La Nueva Isabella, was a fragile collection of timber and thatch clinging to the riverbank. It was a desperate attempt to impose order on a wild frontier. The river was a lifeline, but the location was cursed by geography and poor planning. In 1502, a ferocious hurricane roared in from the Caribbean Sea, obliterating the wooden structures and scattering the Spanish dreams into the jungle. The destruction was absolute. However, out of this debris emerged a figure who would fundamentally engineer the DNA of the modern Americas, Nicolás de Ovando. The new governor did not merely rebuild, he reimagined what a city could be. He looked across the river to the western bank, a plateau of solid coral limestone that offered better elevation and defense. Ovando abandoned the ruins of the east. He ordered the city moved. On this new ground, Ovando implemented a revolutionary concept that had not yet been fully realized even in Europe, the grid system. While medieval European cities were chaotic tangles of winding alleys and dead ends, Santo Domingo was laid out with mathematical precision. Architects pointing at models of the traza or grid-dictated straight streets intersecting at right angles, designed to channel cooling trade winds and maximize military control. This was the first time a grid plan was used in the colonial world, a blueprint that would later be copied in New York, Mexico City, and Bogota. Masons began cutting into the local coral rock. They mixed lime, sand, and blood to create mortar that has withstood half a millennium of tropical storms. The result was the Zona Colonial. It stands today as a stone testament to imperial ambition. Walking through these streets now, you can still touch the rough, porous walls of the Catedral Primada de America. Its construction began in 1514 and took decades to complete, requiring the labor of indigenous people and enslaved Africans whose histories are embedded in the mortar. The structure is a fortress as much as a church, designed to withstand pirate raids and seismic tremors. Heavy mahogany doors guard the entrance. But the city's engineering evolution did not stop with the Spanish conquest. The true test of Santo Domingo's resilience came centuries later, during a catastrophe that nearly wiped it from the map. On September 3, 1930, Hurricane San Zenon struck the capital with apocalyptic force. The storm was a monster. Winds exceeding 150 miles per hour tore through the city, which had expanded far beyond Ovando's stone core into vulnerable wooden neighborhoods. The death toll was staggering, with estimates ranging from 2,000 to 8,000 lives lost in a single afternoon. The Azama River rose and swallowed entire districts. The devastation was total. From this wreckage rose a darker, more industrial era of transformation. The dictator Rafael Trujillo used the destruction as a pretext to rebuild the city in his own image, renaming it Ciudad Trujillo. He obsessed over modernization. He wanted a city of steel and concrete. His engineers replaced the quaint wooden houses with Art Deco monoliths and reinforced concrete structures capable of defying the wind. A helicopter aerial over the city today reveals the legacy of this era. The geometric avenues and the imposing government buildings that define the Gascue district. Concrete mixers worked 24/7 as new administrative palaces rose from the mud. The crowning jewel of this reconstruction was the Malecon, a sweeping waterfront boulevard lined with palm trees and concrete obelisks designed to showcase the regime's power to the world. It was a beautiful facade hiding a brutal reality. The regime's architectural ambition culminated years later in a project of pharaonic proportions, the Torre Anacaona or Columbus Lighthouse. Although proposed in the 19th century, it was President Joaquin Balaguer who ruthlessly pushed it to completion in 1992 for the 500th anniversary of Columbus's arrival. The scale of this structure is difficult to comprehend without standing in its shadow. It is a cross-shaped concrete behemoth, 210 meters long and 59 meters wide. It consumed millions of dollars in a time of economic hardship. Construction workers welding steel beams high atop the structure labored for years to finish it. When activated, its powerful lasers project a massive white cross into the night sky, visible from Puerto Rico on a clear night. It is a controversial giant. Yet the most complex engineering feats in Santo Domingo are not the ones that scrape the sky, but the ones that burrow beneath it. The city sits on a foundation of limestone and clay, riddled with underwater caves and cenos like Los Tres Ojos. Digging here is a geological nightmare. Despite this, the government launched an ambitious bid in the mid-2000s to build the first subway system in the Caribbean. Critics said it was impossible. They claimed the vibrations would collapse the historic buildings or that the tunnels would flood with groundwater. They were wrong. Engineers deployed massive tunnel boring machines, TBMs, to chew through the earth beneath the chaotic traffic of the metropolis. This was surgery on a grand scale. The excavation teams had to navigate around the ancient foundations of the colonial city and the labyrinth of undocumented utility pipes. In 2009, the Metro de Santo Domingo finally opened its doors. A subway train arriving at the station today carries hundreds of thousands of commuters who previously relied on dilapidated buses. The system is a lifeline for the working class, connecting the northern slums with the central business district. It transformed the urban rhythm. Deep below the streets, fiber optic cables and high-voltage power lines now run alongside these tunnels, forming the nervous system of a city racing toward the future. Above ground, the transformation is even more visible. The district of Polygono Central has become a forest of glass and steel. In the last 2 decades, zoning laws were relaxed, triggering a vertical boom that has altered the skyline permanently. The Torre Anacaona 27, standing at roughly 180 meters, is a symbol of this new wealth. It is the tallest building in the Antilles. To build it, engineers had to drive piles deep into the Caribbean bedrock to resist both hurricanes and earthquakes. The structure utilizes advanced wind tunnel testing to ensure stability during the cyclone season. Golden hour drone shots capture the sun reflecting off its glass facade, a stark contrast to the zinc-roofed informal settlements that still hug the riverbanks. The divide is sharp. Santo Domingo is a city of layers. You have the 16th century stone, the 1930s concrete, and the 21st century glass. The infrastructure challenges, however, remain immense. The traffic is legendary. Cars bumper to bumper on the John F. Kennedy Expressway create a river of red taillights every evening. To combat this, the city is constantly evolving its road network. New overpasses and corridors are being stitched into the urban fabric. One of the most critical arteries is the Juan Bosch Bridge, a cable-stayed marvel that spans the Azama River. 14,000 workers died to ensure this bridge stayed upright is not the story here, but rather the thousands of tons of tension steel that hold it together against the corrosive salt air. Maintenance crews dangle from cables to inspect the structure, ensuring the link between the eastern suburbs and the capital remains unbroken. Water management is another invisible war being fought daily. The city's rapid growth outpaced its drainage systems. When tropical storms hit, flash flooding is an immediate threat. Urban planners are now racing to retrofit the city with sustainable drainage solutions. They are looking at the blueprints of the past to solve the problems of the future. The original colonial drainage tunnels built by Ovando's masons still function in parts of the old city, a humiliating reminder that sometimes the old ways were more durable. Modern engineers are now studying these ancient brick arches. The economy of the Dominican Republic flows through these streets. Cargo ships in the harbor of Rio Haina, just to the west, offload the steel and fuel that keep the metropolis running. Container cranes move with robotic precision, stacking goods that will end up in the malls of the Agora or the markets of Duarte. This logistical machine is the heartbeat of the Caribbean. The city is not just a tourist destination, it is a commercial titan. As we look to the future, Santo Domingo faces the existential threat of climate change. Rising sea levels menace the Melcon and the low-lying neighborhoods. The city is fighting back with new seawalls and mangrove restoration projects along the coast. Architects are designing buildings that can breathe, incorporating vertical gardens and solar arrays to reduce the heat island effect. It is a battle for survival. The transformation from a wooden outpost to a metropolis of 3 million people is a story of sheer force of will. It is a city that has been burned, blown down, and rebuilt more times than it cares to remember. Each layer of concrete covers a layer of tragedy. Each skyscraper stands on the shoulders of a forgotten mason. Walking the streets at dusk, the sound of dominoes clacking on plastic tables mixes with the distant hum of the metro. The air is still thick, just as it was when Bartholomew Columbus first stepped into the mud. But the mud is gone, replaced by asphalt and ambition. The city is a survivor. Santo Domingo stands today not just as the oldest European city in the Americas, but as the newest definition of Caribbean urbanism. It is a place where the 15th century and the 22nd century are colliding in real time. The story of its engineering is the story of human endurance against the elements. It proves that even in the path of the storm, we can build something that lasts. The first city is still rising.